You'd think after a few cycles assigned to the diplomatic corps, nothing would truly surprise me. I've dealt with the CNAC hive mind, whose idea of a pleasant conversation is a telepathic assault of existential dread. I've negotiated territorial rights with a methane-breathing species that considers indigestion a sign of deep respect. I thought I'd seen it all. Then came the notification about Earth the Death World. I hissed at my comm unit, all 6 of my eyes twitching in irritation. Honestly, another exaggeration from the melodramatic Vlaxan, no doubt. Perhaps some mildly turbulent weather system or a slightly venomous insect species. The data packet flickered into view, and my hearts nearly stopped. I say hearts because we Zillions have 3, and they were all working overtime here. The report was thorough, compiled by several reputable sources, including the ever-cautious Azaloni. They weren't prone to hyperbole, and what they described about this planet made a black hole look like a mildly inconvenient cosmic pothole. Apparently these humans, the dominant species on Earth, had a bizarre fascination with activities that courted disaster. Their habitat was a chaotic mess of extreme climates, geological instability, and predators that seemed pulled out of a nightmare simulation. The humans not only survived in this environment but actively sought out additional peril. My mandibles clicked nervously. Why did I always get the strangest assignments? A sense of grim inevitability settled over me as I was paired with, of all possible beings, a Viction named Track. Victions have 12 eyes, an unnerving grin full of far too many teeth, and a relentless thirst for adrenaline. In short, they found the Earth report absolutely exhilarating. "This is going to be glorious," Track bellowed, shaking my cubicle with vibrations that threatened to dislodge my scales. Finally, a species worthy of a real challenge. By the time we boarded the transport ship, I was seriously considering faking a sudden illness, perhaps a case of contagious molting. I imagined a tranquil few weeks quarantined in my chambers. Alas, duty called, and a Zillion diplomat never shirks from duty, no matter how horrifying it may turn out to be. The journey took a mere 2 standard cycles a blink in galactic travels. As Earth loomed closer, I couldn't help but marvel at its appearance. It was ordinary lush green continents, swirling blue oceans, wispy clouds, and an otherwise clear atmosphere. If not for the report, I'd think we were on a routine visit to a promising young civilization in need of gentle guidance. "Prepare for atmospheric entry," the pilot's voice echoed through the ship. "Brace yourselves, diplomats. It might get a little bumpy." Bumpy, as it turned out, was a colossal understatement. As we pierced the upper layers of Earth's atmosphere, it felt like the ship was being tossed around by an angry cosmic giant. The lights flickered, consoles sparked, and I'm fairly certain Track let out a whoop of pure delight. "A bit of turbulence," he roared over the din. "These humans know how to welcome guests." I pressed myself against the nearest wall, all 6 eyes squeezed shut. Turbulence? This was a full-blown atmospheric assault. The idea that humans willingly subjected themselves to this on a regular basis, something they called air travel, was mind-boggling. By the time we landed, I was a quivering mass of nerves. We disembarked onto a vast paved surface surrounded by towering metal structures. Track bounded down the ramp while I inched along cautiously, my heart's pounding loud enough to disrupt interstellar transmissions. Our human welcoming party consisted of 2 individuals, a tall one with vibrant red hair and a short, stocky one with a grin as wide as Track's. "Welcome to Earth," the tall one announced, her voice booming despite her relatively small size. "I'm Commander Harris, and this is Dr. Patel. We'll be your guides during your stay." Guides, I managed to rasp out. "You mean Guardians?" Harris chuckled, a deep rumbling sound that sent shivers down my spines. "Nah, just here to show you around and keep you out of too much trouble." Too much trouble. I was beginning to suspect that trouble was the primary ingredient in the human idea of hospitality. Our first destination, they informed us, was something called a city. This, apparently, was where humans congregated in vast numbers. As our shuttle zipped in the direction of this urban monstrosity, Track pressed himself against the viewport, his 12 eyes alight with anticipation. I focused on the nausea rising in my thorax and tried not to calculate the odds of being crushed into oblivion by panicked crowds. The city was a chaotic symphony of sights, sounds, and smells that assaulted my senses. Metal behemoths hurtled along designated pathways at alarming speeds, their horns blaring a cacophony that could wake the ancestral spirits. Towering structures pierced the skies, packed with countless tiny human dwellings. And the crowds, there were humans everywhere, flowing like a relentless river through the maze of streets and walkways. "This is incredible," Track bellowed, nearly dislocating his jaw with the force of his grin. The sheer energy, the sheer potential for disaster, I muttered under my breath. My warning was drowned out by an ear-splitting screech, as one metal behemoth narrowly avoided another. The operators, humans sitting inside these contraptions, exchanged gestures I could only assume were insults. Commander Harris, seemingly unfazed by the chaos, pointed out a small open airspace teeming with humans. "Why don't we grab something to eat? There's a food market nearby that's quite popular track," and I echoed in unison. "You'll see, Doctor," Patel said, his grin taking on a mysterious quality. With a deep breath that I suspected might be my last, I followed them into the throng. The food market was an assault on every sense I possessed. Scents of sizzling meats, exotic spices, and substances I couldn't identify mingled in a thick, dizzying cloud. Shrill human voices competed with rhythmic music that made my exoskeleton itch. Everywhere I looked, there was a flurry of movement, humans jostling, arguing, laughing, seemingly on the verge of physical altercation one moment, sharing food and loud jokes the next. "Here we are," Commander Harris announced, gesturing towards a collection of stalls overflowing with colorful, unidentifiable foodstuffs. Track was already sniffing the air, his multiple nostrils flaring with excitement. "What is that glorious smell? These are tacos," Patel explained. Picking up a flatbread concoction filled with meat, strange green filaments, and a fiery red sauce. "It's a local delicacy," Track grabbed 3 without hesitation and proceeded to devour them with gusto. "Magnificent. The flavors, the textures, this is culinary warfare." I eyed the remaining tacos with dread. As a Zillion, my digestive system was adapted for simple, largely algae-based diets. Spicy, greasy, wholly unknown food screamed imminent gastrointestinal distress. Noticing my hesitation, Harris chuckled. "Don't worry, we have milder options, and there's something for every dietary preference here." A testament to the sheer chaotic ingenuity of the place. "Chaotic ingenuity," I repeated weakly, unsure if that was a compliment or a dire warning. Under Harris and Patel's watchful eyes, I tentatively selected a foodstuff that appeared relatively harmless, a long, pale object encased in soft bread. My first bite was a cautious nibble. Sweetness exploded in my mouth, followed by a wave of something tart and fruity. It was surprisingly pleasant. "Oh, that's just a hot dog," Harris said casually. "That's an Earth classic." As I finished my hot dog, a sense of bewildered fascination began to war with my natural apprehension. It seemed that human existence was a perplexing blend of absurdity and strange ingenuity. Track, now on his 10th taco and sporting a sheen of sweat and fiery red sauce, beckoned me over. "You have to try this." He held out a cup filled with a dark brown liquid. "They call it coffee. Apparently it wakes you up." Sleep was already a rare and fragile thing for a Zillion diplomat on a Death World assignment. I politely declined, trying to envision a scenario in which I would willingly ingest something designed for increased alertness and energy. Humans, as far as I could tell, ran on some sort of internal fusion reactor that never shut down. Patel, noticing my reluctance, patted my shoulder, plating reassuringly. "Don't worry. If coffee is a bit too intense, we can find you something else. But you should really experience human beverages while you're here." It's quite an eye-opener in many ways. His cryptic grin was back. Over the next several rotations, we were subjected to what can only be described as a relentless cultural bombardment. There was the sport spectacle, a frenzied display of humans chasing a spherical projectile and colliding violently with each other, all while spectators roared with incomprehensible enthusiasm. Then the cinema experience, a darkened enclosure where moving images and deafening noises were projected onto a massive screen, leading to shouts of laughter and what sounded like whimpers of terror from the surrounding humans. "How do they do it?" I finally gasped, clutching at the armrest for dear life as the cinematic images shifted to dizzying spaceship battles. "How do they survive this constant overstimulation?" Harris merely shrugged. "We're used to it, I guess. Thriving on chaos is kind of in our DNA." Track, beside me, was practically vibrating with glee. "This is better than hunting a Thean blood fiend." I shuddered involuntarily. Thean blood fiends were considered the apex predator on at least a dozen classified worlds. The most disconcerting experience, however, was the nature park. Humans apparently found the idea of containing wild, potentially dangerous creatures entertaining. As we strolled past an enclosure housing several large fanged mammals with a sign proclaiming Family Day, I was forced to question the evolutionary path that had led these humans to dominate their planet. "Aren't you worried they might escape?" I asked, eyeing the flimsy-looking barrier nervously. "No, they're well-fed," Patel assured me, though I couldn't help but notice his grip tightened slightly on a cylindrical device at his belt. If humans were this about predators capable of tearing through reinforced plastisteel, I could only imagine what other horrors Earth might hold. Despite my growing conviction that I'd signed up for an elaborate suicide mission, the days began to blur into a strange sort of exhilarating routine. Track, constantly fueled by tacos and Earth's endless capacity for thrills, seemed determined to cram a lifetime of excitement into the span of our visit. I was dragged onto contraptions that twirled, flipped, and plummeted at speeds that should have, by all laws of physics, reduced occupants to organic mush. And yet, with each passing ordeal, something unexpected began to happen. I started to feel oddly unbreakable. I still flinched at loud noises and envisioned my imminent demise a dozen times a day, but a tremor of something resembling amusement began to flicker within me. One evening, as we soared hundreds of meters above the glittering cityscape on an observation platform, Track let out one of his booming laughs. "You know, you're starting to loosen up, Zillion." I felt all 6 of my eyes widen in shock. "I beg your pardon," all those scales so tightly packed together, he grinned. "Starting to see a few gaps, like a hatchling molting its first shell." "I am not molting," I protested a bit too defensively. Harris and Patel, who had been engrossed in a human device that projected miniature images of faraway places, glanced over with identical knowing smiles. "You might not be shedding skin," Harris said, "but you're shedding some of that fear, that rigidity." Perhaps they were right. Perhaps Earth's peculiar brand of insanity was contagious. News of Earth's death world classification rippled through the galactic community like a shockwave. Interspecies communication channels buzzed with a volatile mixture of horror, incredulity, and morbid fascination. Delegations from established civilizations and curious explorers flocked to this blue and green anomaly, eager to witness the absurdity for themselves. Earth, it seemed, became the trendiest tourist destination in the known galaxy. Initially, the influx was limited to diplomats, researchers, and those hardy few driven by the lure of the extreme. But the tales they returned with, filled with near-death experiences, bizarre culinary adventures, and the baffling resilience of humans, ignited an unprecedented boom in intergalactic travel. Harris and Patel, now seasoned veterans at handling bewildered extraterrestrials, had their work cut out for them. I, against all odds, found myself volunteering to assist, drawn by a strange mix of civic duty and the perverse thrill of proving myself. I was completely unraveling. Track, of course, was in his element, having established himself as a tour guide specializing in death-defying adventures. The strangest twist of all was the change within me. The Zillion diplomatic corps prided itself on order, predictability, and the meticulous avoidance of risk. Yet here I was, haggling with a Varian merchant over the price of a souvenir replica of a human roller coaster, my heart's pounding with a rhythm that wasn't entirely born out of terror. One day, as I shepherded a group of wide-eyed Zonians through a bustling marketplace, a feeling washed over me, unfamiliar yet undeniable. It was a feeling of exhilaration, of being vibrantly, chaotically alive. And perhaps, somewhere deep within my thoroughly rattled exoskeleton, a hint of understanding began to dawn. Earth was without a doubt a death world, but perhaps in its own mad, unpredictable way, it was a world that taught you how to truly live. In the grand tapestry of the cosmos, the story of Earth, the unlikely death world, became legend. It was whispered in the shadowy corners of space stations and debated in the hallowed halls of the Galactic Council. No longer seen merely as a dangerous anomaly, Earth became a symbol, a testament to the relentless adaptability of life and the strange, wondrous ways it could flourish against the odds. For myself, the assignment that began as a potential disaster became a transformative journey. My report on Earth, submitted with trembling mandibles and a reluctantly expanded glossary of human slang, was met with both amusement and newfound respect. I returned to the Zillion homeworld as a changed being, still cautious, perhaps overly so, but with a broadened perspective on the boundless possibilities of existence. As for Track, he thrived. His intergalactic adventure company, specializing in Earth-level extreme tours, became wildly successful. Brave, or perhaps foolish souls from across the galaxy clamored for the chance to hurtle down waterfalls, outsmart volcanic eruptions, and sample the spiciest of Earth's delicacies, all under his boisterous guidance. And Earth itself. Well, it continued being Earth-loud, unpredictable, and teeming with a chaotic energy that seemed to defy all logic. Humans, with their baffling love for danger and remarkable capacity to adapt, continued to not only survive but thrive on their improbable death world. I still make the occasional trip back. Sometimes it's for diplomatic purposes. Sometimes it's to indulge in the simple, forbidden pleasure of a double taco with extra hot sauce. And sometimes standing on a crowded street corner, bathed in the neon glow of a human advertisement and assaulted by dozens of indescribable languages, I feel an odd sense of peace. It's the peace of knowing that in this vast, bewildering universe, there will always be a place where the concept of normal is delightfully shattered and where a cautious Zillion can learn to embrace a little bit of beautiful, improbable chaos. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. For every comment that says we will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.